Today, I will talk about the human eye. And after explaining the human eye, I will answer these questions on the board and then give you some questions to answer. So follow me till the last section. The number one question says that the parts labeled IV, V, and VI respectively are A. Ciliary body, optic nerve, yellow spots. B. Blind spots, optic nerve, suspensory ligament. C. Vessels humor, yellow spots, optic nerve. D. Blind spots, optic nerve, pupil. The second question says that the greatest concentration of light receptors is found in the part labeled A. VI, B. V, C. IV, D. III. Number 3. The aqueous humor is represented by the part labeled A. I, B. II, C. III, D. IV. Number 4 question. The part labeled I is the A. Pupil, B. Sclera, C. Cornea, D. Iris. So after explaining the human eye, I will answer the questions on the board and then give you the ones to answer. This is a diagrammatical representation of the inside of the human eye. So this is a diagrammatical representation of the inside of the human eye, and these labels are the parts of the human eye. And this label starts with this first part called the conjunctiva. This first part. So this is the conjunctiva. And what is this conjunctiva? The conjunctiva is a tiny transparent membrane. As you can see from here, it is a tiny transparent membrane that covers the cornea. This is the cornea, while this is the conjunctiva. So the conjunctiva is a tiny transparent membrane that covers the cornea, and it also protects the cornea. So after the cornea, the next part is the aqueous humor. The aqueous humor is a fluid that is inside the eye. The fluid inside the eye before the lens. There is a fluid that inside the eye before the lens, and there is also a fluid inside the eye that is after the lens. So the fluid inside the eye that is after the lens is called vitreous humor, while the fluid inside the eye that is before the lens is called the aqueous humor. And what is the function of this aqueous humor? The aqueous humor, which is a fluid that is inside the eye but before the lens, contains nutrients. It contains glucose, it contains amino acid, and it supplies nutrients to the lens of the eye. So that's the function of the fluid inside the eye, but before the lens, it supplies nutrients to the lens of the eye. So after this part of the eye, the next part of the eye is the iris. This is the iris, this is iris, and this one is also the iris. The iris is a muscular part of the eye. It can contract, it can relax. So the iris helps to adjust the opening of the pupil. This opening that allows rays of light to reach the lens is called the pupil. So the iris is able to adjust the opening of the pupil in order to either reduce the rays of light reaching the lens or to allow more rays of light to enter the lens, depending on the brightness of where you are. If where you are is dark, then the iris opens more in order to allow more light to reach the lens of your eye so that you can be able to see. But if where you are is very bright, the iris closes and reduces the size of the pupil so that adequate amount of light ray can reach the lens, because when too much light ray reaches the lens, it destroys the lens. So the iris is the muscular part of the eye that regulates the size of the pupil and also regulates the amount of light that enters or reaches the lens. Then after the iris, the next part of the eye I'll talk about is the pupil. The pupil is that part through which light reaches the lens. The opening through which light ray from an object you are viewing reaches the lens is called the pupil. And as I said before, the size of the pupil can increase, it can also decrease. And the part of the eye that adjusts the size of the pupil is the iris. Now, after the pupil, the next part is the lens. The lens is that part of the eye that receives the light from an object you are looking at. And the function of this lens is to focus the light from the object you are looking at the retina. That is the function of the lens, because you are able to see because of light. That is why nobody can see in darkness. Any object you are able to see, you are able to see that object because that object is reflecting a light that is shown on it. So without light, nobody can see. So the function of the lens is to focus the light from the object you are viewing to the retina of your eye, so that the image of that object you are viewing can be formed at the retina of your eye. So this structure here is the lens of your eye. Then this structure here is the ciliary body of your eye. It's also a muscular structure. It is the ciliary body of your eye. This structure here also, the ciliary body of your eye. And it is an extension of the choroid. Choroid is a dark pigment in the eye, and it extends to the ciliary body, which holds the suspensory ligaments. These are the suspensory ligaments. The suspensory ligaments are the ligaments that hold the lens in place. The suspensory ligaments, they are elastic. They can contract, they can expand. The sensory ligaments are the ligaments that holds the lens and also help to adjust the shape of the lens in order to get a clearer image of the object you are viewing, and also in order to focus the light from the object you are viewing to the retina. So the function of the adjustment of the lens is to focus the light from the object you are viewing to the retina. You have seen, photographers taking pictures. Sometimes they try to adjust the camera of the picture. What are they trying to do? To get a clearer image of that object. So, and the lens does the same function. The shape can be adjusted by the sensory ligament in order to get a clearer image of the object you are viewing, and also to be able to make the image to form at the retina, because if the image is not formed at the retina, then you can't see anything. So after the lens is the suspensory ligament. I've talked about the suspensory ligament, which are the ligaments that hold the lens in position and also help to adjust the shape of the lens in order to focus the light from an object you are viewing, whether the object is at far distance or at a near distance. The adjustment of the lens helps to focus both objects the image of object at a far distance and also the image of objects at a near distance to the retina. Then I've talked about the ciliary body, which is the part of the eye that holds the suspensory ligament. Then the next thing I'll talk about is the vitreous humor. The vitreous humor is that fluid inside the eye that is after the lens. The fluid is after the lens. It also contains nutrients. It helps to keep the inside of the eye moist. It also gives the eye its shape. Both the vitreous humor and the aqueous humor gives the eye its shape. That's why without this fluid, the eye will become flattened. That's why when someone uses a needle and punch inside your eye, and these fluids escape from your eye, you see that the person's eye will become what? Flattened, and the person will go blind. So the vitreous humor and the aqueous humor gives the eye and helps the eye to retain its shape. Then the next thing I'll talk about is the retina. The retina of the eye is very, very important because the image of an object you are viewing is formed at the retina. So the retina contains photoreceptors. Photoreceptors that receives the light from the lens. So the retina is an important part of the eye. It is that part of the eye where the image of the object you are viewing is formed. And the retina of the eye contains two photoreceptors known as the rods and the cone. The rods are the photoreceptors that helps you to see in dark environments. It produces black and white image, while the cone is a photoreceptor that helps to produce color images. It also helps you to detect color of an object, the cone. Then another part of the eye I will talk about is the fovea centralis. From the name, fovea centralis, this is the part of the eye that contains the most photoreceptor. In other words, this part of the eye is most sensitive to light. So the part of the eye that is most sensitive to light is the fovea centralis. In other words, it contains the maximum amount of photoreceptors. And then the next thing I'll talk about is the optic nerve. The optic nerve is that nerve that transmits the image of the object you are viewing to the brain in form of electrical signals. You know, after your eye has formed the image of the object you are viewing, your brain needs to interpret to you what you are seeing. For example, if 4 is shown to you and you look at the number 4, the image of that number 4 is formed at the retina of your eye. Now, the photoreceptors transmit that image to the optic nerve, and then the optic nerve takes the image in form of electrical signals to the brain, and then the brain will interpret to you that what you are viewing at is the number 4. So without this optic nerve, even if your eye is able to form an image at the retina, you won't be able to detect that you are seeing anything, because the optic nerve that will send the information to your brain for your brain to interpret to you what you are seeing is not good. So when the optic nerve is faulty, it can also lead to what is called blindness, even if the lens and the retina are in good condition. So the optic nerve is also a very important part of the eye, because it is that part of the eye that sends the information of the image formed at the retina in form of electrical impulses to the brain, for the brain to interpret to us what we are actually viewing. Then this is the iris. This is the iris. Then this is the pupil. This is the pupil. That dark spot in your eye is the pupil, and it is the opening through which light ray enters the lens, and then the lens helps to focus that light ray to the retina so that the image of the object you are viewing can be formed at the retina of your eye. And then this is the eyelid. The eyelid is also a protective part of the eye that covers the eye whenever an object wants to enter the eye. So the protective parts of the eye are the eyelid is a protective part of the eye. The eyelid, the one you can close and open, that's the eyelid. Also the conjunctiva, which is a tiny transparent membrane that covers the cornea, the white part of the eye. It's a tiny transparent membrane that covers the cornea. So it's also a protective part of the eye because it protects the what? Cornea of the eye. Another protective part of the eye is the tear gland. The tear gland helps to secrete tears, which contains substances that help to kill germ in the eye. So the tear gland is also a protective part of the eye that helps to secrete fluid that kills germs that enters the eye. That's why whenever something enters the tear gland secretes tears in order to kill that germ that enters the eye. So having explained this, let me answer the questions on the board. The questions on the board are: number one, the part labeled IV, V and VI respectively are the A. Ciliary body. Ciliary body is this part, which is this part. So IV is not ciliary body. So A is out already. A is not the answer. Then let's check option B. Option B, blind spot. Let me check whether IV is blind spot. IV is not blind spot. This is blind spot. So option B is out. Let's check option C. Option C, vacuous humor. Let me check whether IV is vacuous humor. IV, vitreous humor. Yes, IV is vitreous humor because vitreous humor is the fluid inside the eye that is after the what? The lens. So IV is vitreous humor. Then V is the yellow spot. V, yes, V is the yellow spot. VI is the optic nerve. So the answer is option C. Then number 2 question. The greatest concentration of light receptors is found in the part labeled A, VI. What's VI? VI is the optic nerve. No, that's not the answer. B, V. V is the fovea central. So the answer is option B. Question 3 says the aqueous humor is represented by the part labeled the aqueous humor, which is the fluid inside the eye, but before the what? Lens. So this is the aqueous humor. And what is the part represented in? It represents in this diagram. The part it represents in this diagram is II. So the answer is B. II is the part called aqueous humor. Then number 4, the part labeled I is the part labeled I. This is the part labeled I. The part labeled I is the what? The part labeled I is the pupil. It It is the opening through which light rays reaches the lens